Well, welcome to the Stoke It Up podcast, everybody. A podcast encouraging you in your journey with God. I'm Alan Stoddard, and I'm your host, and we have episode 2 of season 3 coming at you right now. I've got Kenneth Priest in this one, and we both work for Chic-Fil-A, and we both are pastors. And so we've been discussing what we've learned about ministry and how the church can learn from Chic-Fil-A. It's a fascinating conversation. It's only partial. We're going to do it again. But let's jump in and see what the church can learn from Chic-Fil-A. Well, all right, everybody. We are in episode number 2 here of the Stoke It Up podcast, and it's with Kenneth Priest. And it's good to see my brother again, of course, and catch up with him in the ministry. He is in Hawaii, still pastoring a church in Hawaii. But an interesting thing happened. He got on at the new Chic-Fil-A, right? New Chick-fil-A there in Hawaii. And near that time or something, I remember you hit me up and said, you ought to go check out Chick-fil-A. They're friendly to pastors. And I thought that didn't even come on my radar, but I went over there and they needed some help, and next thing you know, they interviewed me a few times and I got a job there. So I started thinking about Chick-fil-A, and that's our fan favorite, and I started thinking we ought to do a podcast, because every time I go in there I'm thinking, wow, look at what these guys have done, and how can that relate to the church? So we're going to talk about how Chick-fil-A can influence the church. And so, Kenneth, welcome back to the podcast, man. What's going on?
Yeah, delighted to be back with you, Alan. Kicking off the new year and exciting opportunities. My story with Chick-fil-A goes back a little bit longer. I first met Wayne Hoover, who works in their corporate office, probably about 12 years ago when I was with the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention. And I actually started bringing Wayne out to Texas to do leadership training for pastors and church leaders because of Chick-fil-A's serve model, their entire, just the hospitality that they exude and that they equip, and the culture that they try to create is exactly what a church should be doing in order to reach guests and to be very guest friendly and guest welcoming in their environment. And so, just to see the progression and now to be a part of that culture, working at one of the stores and seeing how they're doing that, and really trying to build the culture from within is just it's a great model for churches to really think about how they are doing in these areas of guest friendliness, as well as equipping people for what they're doing in their roles there for Chick-fil-A at the store, but for the church, equipping people in the roles as they're serving the church.
So when I go in to interview, I got tenacious. I was very intimidated. Let me just say, the whole thing. I've had 2 jobs, military and ministry, and neither one of those are jobs I always joke around. And I went in intimidated. I was like, so they didn't call me back immediately, or maybe I don't think they called me back. And they were busy. It's busy. And so I actually walked in. I went old school, and I walked in and I said, "Hey, is the manager here?" And I just said, I applied for a job and I would really love to work here. I'd love to come interview with you guys. And they called me back. And I'll tell you this, the first 40 days, I about died. I was not in shape for that work, Kenneth. I mean, my feet hurt. I was only working 4-hour shifts, and I'm coming home going, what in the world am I doing? During the interview, they looked at my resume and they were shaking their head going, what are you doing? Because I am just a team member. I'm not a leader. They treat me as a leader there in Granbury now, but I'm not a shift leader or something like that. I don't have the savvy. I don't know all the stuff. So I'm just a grunt there. But it has been one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, yeah. Part of it's just being a part of that culture, right? I mean, they really create a desiring culture that's something that you want to be a part of, and you're excited to engage with it. And they do reach a lot of it's first time job, so they reach a lot of teenagers, a lot of younger. And so when they find someone a little bit older with some experience, ultimately they're relying on the maturity that you bring in order to help them in coaching and modeling for the rest of the team how you should be functioning as an adult in this culture. So,
Why do you think they're so successful? Why are they effective? That's a better word.
yeah,
Effective.
yeah, I think that to me, from my observations, part of the effectiveness of their model is, of course, they're technically a secular company. They're family owned and they're a Christian family, but they're very sensitive to issues, and so they use the family culture. And so instead of saying, we're closed on Sunday so that you can, go to worship, they do use that. They say, you go to worship or spend time with family. And so it's the family context of what they're trying to do. And so part of their effectiveness is the fact that the family does honor God. And that's true. Kathy founded it with the understanding that he's going to be closed on Sunday for him to go to worship and encourage his employees to go to worship or spend time with family. And so part of that's the effectiveness of it. But also it is that whole creating a culture of positivity. They don't want people sitting around being negative and complaining. And so they try to do their coaching when they hear even a team leader or manager using negative language. They try to change that culture, say, okay, now what's a positive way we could say this, right? How could we help people not look at this from a negative perspective, but look at how the positive, look at the opportunity that comes out of this. And so I think that's part of the reason that they are effective, is they're always looking for that way of creating an environment and a culture that is desiring to be a part of it. I mean, you know how it is, having been a pastor for so many years. I remember uh, the old very drainable people, right? You don't want to be around the very drainable people, the negative people all the time. Whereas you want to be around positive people, and that's how it is in the church. And so that's the culture they're trying to create. There is be a positive person yourself, so that other people want to be around you.
When I started working, I didn't know the technical things. I mean, I knew that you've worked in that world before. I've not. And so I was totally intimidated. And I'm glad because it told me as a pastor, this is how real people work. So it's
Yeah,
been a whole education for me. And now I know enough to where I can interact and it's unreal. I thought a couple things. One, I thought Chick-fil-A lives up to the hype. They really
yeah.
do live up to the hype. Um, they train people. They're just very effective. I haven't. Another thing would be this. I haven't heard barely anything negative. The culture in Granbury, Texas. The operator's name is Aaron Grant, and the I haven't heard anything negative that I could point out. It would be so minuscule that I wouldn't even do it. it the culture doesn't allow for negativity, and it's not a neg it's not mandated. It just happens. I mean, it is mandated, but it's not. I have not seen anyone who said this is the way we're going to be. It kind of, you just go in and it feeds into that culture. uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
It is something that they train for it though, right? I mean, they're training people words to use, right? My pleasure.
right.
Uh, when you're saying my pleasure, it's hard for you to be negative about it. And so the language that they're choosing to use is what helps with that.
I started thinking, they pulled off the impossible. It feels like I really analyze it every time I go up. I'm thinking these things, and so I wrote down three things: onboarding, training, culture and then impact. And I just have wondered, like, how in the world are they doing this? What is Chick-fil-A about? Is it about chicken? Is it about money? I think if you asked any of the leaders, they would say we're about people.
Yeah.
But all three of those are going on, and I just have never been a part of of a secular organization that's like that. So let's talk
Yeah.
about how they onboard, man. Let's talk about how they onboard. What do you see as with the Chick-fil-A model for onboarding an employee that the church can learn from?
Yeah, and you might have a little more experience on that side of it, the way you were onboarded than I do, because mine was a little unique in that I went into a brand new store that just opened, and so we had a lot of corporate trainers around. Like I said, I do have a little bit of background in the hospitality industry and the food service industry, and so the whole reason that I came in and am doing what I'm doing is a little more, I guess you call it, specialized in that field, and so my onboarding may have been a little bit different than yours, but overall, the process that they're doing is, they're looking for certain attributes, I guess, of individuals, des- desire to work, desire to put in the time that's needed to put in, also a desire to learn, a desire to be trained is a part of what they're doing. And so everything is, focused on those types of things. On, you know, uh, the employee themselves has got to have the right motivation. So when you think about that translating into the church, the motivation of church members should be to be discipled, right? To be transformed in the image of Christ. And I think that's really where the difficulty comes in, and the big difference that we would see between the two is there's not a lot of Christians that come to church expecting to be discipled in our Western culture, right? We talk about discipleship, but there's not an expectation. In fact, it's more of an expectation of what's in it for me than how can I be discipled to look more like Jesus. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it does. And I see that Chick-fil-A pushes the envelope of an employee. And I will say, and now full on, I'm a 30-year pastor here. Now, I watch people and I'm are we doing this because we have to do it because Chick-fil-A says we have to do it? Or do we believe that there is a serving attitude in our lives to where we go, you know what, this really is who we are? Now, we don't get it right
Yeah.
all the time. We don't get it right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so onboarding, for me, I had 2 or 3 interviews and I was really impressed by that. I was blown away, really nervous. Interviewed by the operator. In the end, he sat down with me, and then 2 managers. They got me on. Once they realized I was in, and I think they saw some potential, they said, "Oh yeah, we want this guy," and it was
Yeah.
great. I would say for church life, as far as interview, telling people the mission, what are the details of what you're going to be doing, what's your schedule. I think churches would learn from Chick-fil-A and saying, okay, if you're going to do this ministry, let us sit down and let's talk about what you will be doing. Um,
Yeah.
and and you got to have the right people in the right place, the whole bus thing. And I want to ask you a question about CEO model of leadership in the last 10 years. I think we got some real problems in the church with that, but I want to leave that just for a minute. So they never ask if you're a Christian. I was not asked if I was a Christian. I think they're looking for it. And it is a Christian organization. So you're going to join and there's these values. All of that's obvious in the interview. And I think we as churches I think we're sloppy in the interview and the onboarding of people to serve and lead. I think
Oh yeah,
There's
I
a
totally agree. Especially so, I was kind of focusing on somebody coming to the church, but you're going to the next level when you're talking about serving in the church.
yeah,
We absolutely, and I've dealt with this for years in church revitalization. Uh, most churches have a warm body, put that person in place. They don't know. It doesn't matter if they're called to do it, gifted to do it, equipped to do it. They just kind of put people in place and want them to do the job instead of really finding people that are passionate about engaging in that ministry role, whatever it is, right?
yes. There, one thing I know, I became fascinated around the middle part. I've been there 6 months. So a few months ago, I became fascinated. I was like, these guys are selling chicken sandwiches. They're paying employees to be incredible servants, and they get this customer retention that is off the chain. It's just how, and I started going, how are you doing? Here's what I thought. They're outdoing the church. What do you
Oh
think?
yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. And it's not just, there's other companies that do that as well. Debbie and I've experienced that in our ministry. The company she works for, um, we've said many times, they do church better than the church, right? They take care of their employees. They make sure that they're loved on, they're cared for, their needs are met. They're doing for them a lot better than the church does many times, and I think that's true of a lot of secular organizations. But definitely Chick-fil-A uh, takes care of their members and their customers a lot better than many churches do. I know there's the rare church that's doing a great job. And there's people that are going to listen to this and go, oh, no, my church is doing a great job. Yeah, that's an anomaly. The reality is, I mean, if 85% of the churches were doing that type of thing, there would be fewer churches declining. But since 79 point whatever percent of churches are in decline, it's evidence that they're not doing church well. And this is a part of doing church well, and they definitely get it.
Yeah, I love it. I actually became a little agitated because I started saying it around Chick-fil-A. I was like, dude, Chick-fil-A is outdoing the church. That's wrong. That is not right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been thinking about, as we think about planting, I'm thinking, how can we take some of the Chick-fil-A culture and put it in church and not just do it because people are customers. That's been one of the
Right.
things for me, because there's those
Yeah.
times where I'm serving and I work the drive-through line. I do it. I can do almost everything. I'm slow at bagging, but there's other people that are better than that. So anyway, I can do all the stuff. I've done it in there now, and I'm just going. There's those times where some customers are very agitating. I mean, I'm 59 years old. My mantra's been, I'm 59. I don't have to have this job. Now, I like the job. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I want to tell some customers, I want to go, I don't have to be here. Now, these kids, they're just trying to get your chicken sandwich order, man. That's all they're trying to do. And you're like treating them like they're gum on your shoe. But then that's met with or partnered up with the video, the Chick-fil-A video that's out there that shows people walking in. Have you seen that? And it tells their story.
Yeah.
Somebody walks in, they say, this lady probably lost somebody in their family this week, or this lady's a single parent mom, husband just left. It's very heart-wrenching. It tells you why you serve. But
Right.
my point here is just to bring up is that the job can push you to the limit as to whether you're a true servant of God. Or are you doing it because you expect it on the job? Now that's not bad.
Right.
But
Right.
I
Right.
think there's a
Yeah.
whole nother
So,
level where we go, we genuinely care
right.
because
So,
of Jesus.
yeah. So there's two things that they do well, right? They create raving fans. uh, that's the clients, the
That's
customer base. They're raving fans, right? And then they create a culture of committed worker, right? And so you've got people that are willing and it's not just they're working to make money. they're willing to help out when things are rough. And so, you had a couple of people get sick and somebody had to leave her, and somebody go, "Hey, I'll stay and work longer. It'll be okay. Don't worry about it." Or, "Hey, they'll you can call them and say, 'Hey, could you come in and help?'" They're like, "Oh yeah, I'll be right there. Don't worry about it." They're committed to the organization that they're in. Many of them, and especially, you see it in some of these younger ones, they're really looking and asking the question, um, could this be a career path for me? Could I own my own store one day? Do I really want to commit to this path and learn everything about this store so that I can go into their leadership training program and maybe be my own owner operator one day? And so those two culture creates raving fans and committed employees is really something that they're great at.
If I were 20 or 30 years younger, I would consider it if I wasn't in the ministry.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't put the
absolutely.
hours in. Those guys put these young people are amazing. I'll tell you, they are. I watch these young adults, high schoolers, some, but the cutting edge high schoolers, shift leaders types, and all of them. But the young adults that are leading our Chick-fil-A, I'm just blown away. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow, you guys are awesome.
yeah, they're doing a great job. They really do.
To any young person, really to even us older guys, it's a great job. Initially I wasn't in shape for it, so I was about to die. But then I got my wind and I thought I can do this. So now I go in and I can hang now. I only work 6 to 8 hour shifts, and I only do that 3 times a week. Um, it's really
Yeah,
it's really been life changing for me. I'm really
yeah,
processing how to onboarding is important. So we brought up onboarding. Another thing I've noticed is their leadership development. So let's move to that for the sake of time. They do an initial training with you as an employee. They show you everything. I mean, they showed me every morsel. And what I didn't know, here's another thing. You can always ask questions. I mean, and
yeah,
you're not treated like a loser. I've seen the owner, the operator of Chick-fil-A, Aaron Grant. I've seen him do every job at that Chick-fil-A, man.
yeah,
I've seen him do.
absolutely.
There is nothing that guy won't do. I've watched it. Now he doesn't do it all the time, but I'm telling you, I've seen him do everything. And I
Oh yeah,
watch.
they step in. Yeah, they step in and do whatever needs to be done on that shift. I mean, same thing for me. Sean Whaley is the owner operator of the one here in Maui, and he'll take out the trash. Right, he's out on the sidewalk scrubbing with a broom and soap when grease gets spilled on the sidewalk from one of the guys taking the grease after he emptied the fryers. And so he'll be the one out there scrubbing it up and clean it. I mean, they do whatever it takes to make the store look nice, presentable, and to operate. And so they're running all over the place doing they put in the hours, but that's a part of their onboarding as leaders, right? They're trained to do that, and that's the one of the great things that I do like about Chick-fil-A is their leadership principle is, I want you to be a better leader, not just for here. Even if you're going to leave in 2 months, I want you to take what you've learned and use it in life. And so part of their development is trying to help you, not just here, but wherever you go from here. And so they want to give you skills that you can be a better person whenever you go out from this place.
I've been incredibly impressed. They've been so nice to me. They know, I was for the sake of our listeners, from my leadership, I was Army 11 years, and then I've been in the ministry and had a lot of good leadership exposure and equipping, more than most people get in a lifetime, which I didn't deserve, but I'm thankful. And they recognize that. And so, but
Yeah.
I was telling a friend of mine the other day who's he works there and he's been a leader in the military too, that we don't fit exactly into the younger development with these guys, because we have leaders at Chick-fil-A who are developing the younger leaders. If we were in that circle, we would want to talk and interact. That's not our role. It's interesting how that works. We
Yeah.
it would upset the whole paradigm. And yet we're still apart and we get to influence, because I've told somebody the other day, leadership is influencing people to accomplish the mission of God by providing three things: purpose, direction, and motivation.
Yep.
And it's interesting to see these young people learning to be leaders. They sit in the back of the store once a week, and our one of our main guys there, can't remember what his title is, but his name's Kelvin. He's a dynamite guy, and he's taking all these young people in leaders in training, they call it here.
Yeah.
It is incredible to see these young people learning that CEO business model. Now I want to ask you something. Do you think the
Yep.
leadership model of the Bill Hybels model of Willow Creek business model, Chick-fil-A, does it have some dangers for the church? Can it go too far?
Oh, absolutely. The difficulty with any of those models, and it's the same difficulty that a store such as Chick-fil-A, an owner could get if they're not cautious and really surround themselves with the right other leaders to help them um, on the journey, is ego. I mean, Ken Blanchard in his Lead Like Jesus, he defined ego as edging God out. And so that CEO model can become to a point very quickly, and that's what we've seen happen in a number of these churches that use that business model, CEO model. You just kind of look around at some of the recent failures of these things. It's because ego got the best of them. They actually started thinking that they are somebody important instead of understanding, you know, you're just a sheep herder, man. You're an under shepherd. That's your job. Your job's not to be too good to do anything. Your job is to do whatever it takes to serve the church. And so that model in the church, I know it's used, and I know there are some very successful churches out there that utilize it. But I see that the two dangers are ego, and the other danger is um, uh, lack of effective transitional strategy for the future, right? When that CEO pastor retires, the church oftentimes is not prepared for with a succession plan that can see through a transition to bring in another leadership like that. It suffers greatly. Um, you lose members. Oftentimes, there's conflict because someone's trying to come in and lead like the last guy that left. And the difference is the last guy that left, well, maybe he's been there for 30 years. And so he built up credibility to be able to lead that way. And maybe he was effective in leading that way. But it's because he built up the credibility to do that. But it doesn't transition to the next person as easily.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We could go a whole nother podcast, and maybe we will, on the last 10 years of where CEO style leadership. I bought up on some of that, and I think there's some of it you got to have, but I love what you just said about that. I'll leave that for another day and another time. Training at Chick-fil-A. So pastors and leaders and my Christian friends listening, I would encourage you to, when you onboard in a church, you ought to be onboarding. I think that's something that you can own yourself. You say, well, they don't do that in my church. Well, why don't you start doing it? Go offer yourself up. When I went to Chick-fil-A, I went in. That's an old school thing. When they didn't call me back, I went in and said, I want the job. I want to
Yeah.
serve. And it's helped me. It's stressed me and stretched me to go, are you doing this because you love God, or are you doing this because it's the culture of Chick-fil-A? They can be
Right.
synonymous, but they can also be antithetical.
Right. Absolutely.
What can the church learn from Chick-fil-A that would make you a better pastor, Kenneth?
Well, I think that dealing with that training issue, one of the great things Chick-fil-A does is they've got their, I don't know if you've been involved with watching any of their pathway training, but
Yes.
they have online training. So they do training there at the store. They do on the job training. Put a coach next to you. Somebody you're walking with to learn how to do it. But then they assign you online training. And so you can watch videos and learn how to do things, and be able to figure out the technical stuff that you need before you go out and actually are trying to do it for the first time yourself. And so when you think about that, for the pastor, to me, it's an encouragement for, and you and I have been involved in this for a long time. Daryl Eldridge was real big on being a lifelong learner. If you graduated seminary 25 years ago and you've done nothing to sharpen your skills in preaching, in presenting, in leadership, then you're a few decades behind, right? And so you've got to be that lifelong learner, always looking for a conference, looking for an event, looking for online training you can get, looking for a book that you can read, looking for someone that can help develop you as a mentor. That is so important as a part of the training process. And that's important for a pastor to be a part of as well.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. Well, we got to shut the podcast down for this episode. We feel like we've only tapped into some of it, but I would encourage any church and church leader and us as Christians to take a look at Chick-fil-A and go, what can we learn from these guys? Because they should not be outdoing local churches with a passion to serve. Now they've got a unique thing because they get to have a product that we all want to go and eat and love, and they've created this environment. It's wholesome.
Yeah.
Families love it because kids can go and use the inside gym, and it's just the inside not gym playground. And it's just an incredible thing. But we would do well to serve with an honest passion to put people first. That's one thing that I've taken away. They do put people first. Say what you want about the chicken, and it's good. Say what you want about it's all about dollars, and it is. It's a business. Okay, praise the Lord. But I can honestly say that it's about people first. There are things, and I feel sorry for people who work in other places. I can't go to another fast food restaurant now. I went into one the other day, and one guy was working the entire drive-through. And I thought, wow, today at Chick-fil-A Granbury, there were 6 people working the drive-through inside. 2 baggers, a pusher, someone working the drive-through, a drink maker, and someone taking the order.
Right. Yeah.
It's a well-oiled machine.
They staff up appropriately for the business they've got.
What's your favorite meal there, man?
You know what? I got a couple of different favorite ones. For breakfast, I really like the egg white grilled sandwich. A lot of people, the grilled chicken that they do at breakfast has a citrus marinade, and the lunch has a garlic marinade. And I really like that citrus marinade. But then I like their Cobb salad as well. But I like to put the hot grilled filet on there instead of the fried nuggets. Makes it a little bit healthier for you. So for lunch, go with the Cobb salad with grilled chicken. For breakfast, get you an egg white grill. How about you?
I like the well, you know this already, the chicken biscuit with the jelly on it. You're from the South, so you get it. Gina's my wife is such a rebellion against that. She won't do it, but the jelly just throws it off. I like that. And then for lunch, I like the kale salad with the grilled nuggets, man. I'm trying to eat healthy.
Do you?
It's tasty. Matter of fact, I went back and watched them how they made those grilled nuggets a couple days ago. I was like, I want to watch this. It's incredible. That's stuff.
That's good. That's good.
Well, look, man, thanks for being on the podcast. Love you guys over there in Hawaii, and keep sharing the gospel.
Love you too, brother.
Take this conversation, do something with it there in Hawaii. I'll do the same here. And we'll talk to you on the next podcast when I hit you up to do something, man.
That sounds great. Talk to you later.
Okay, man.